Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm just waiting for some people to come online. If you are online, please let me know because I cannot see anyone online yet. And whilst I'm waiting, let me just see if there is anything come through. Right, so welcome to Developing Your Strategic Thinking Skills, moving from operational to visionary leadership. And whilst I'm waiting for people to come online, if you type in the comments, share in the comments where you're joining from today, what part of the world you're joining from today. I'd love to know where you are based. Normally have people from all over the world that attend my LinkedIn Lives, and it's always great to know which part of the world you're joining from. So do share in the comments. And even if you're watching it on replay, I do come and read the comments after, so please let me know. I'll just give it a few more seconds and then I'll get going. Whilst I'm waiting, let me just clean my glasses a bit. I've got a bit murky. So hello and welcome to Developing Your Strategic Thinking Skills, moving from operational to visionary leadership. Now, strategic thinking is one of the most sought after leadership skills, but I find that many leaders get stuck in the weeds of the day-to-day operations, and this limits their influence and impact. And also when people are moving from more operational leadership to more strategic leadership as well, they are not necessarily making that transition in their thinking. So they're in what should be strategic roles, but they're thinking more operational. And so in today's live session, and hello from Florida, it's good to have you here. In today's session, I'm going to be sharing some practical ways that you can strengthen your strategic thinking skills so that you can make that shift from being reactive to being proactive, and broaden your perspective and lead with vision and confidence like you are able to do. And so whether you're stepping into a new leadership role or you're preparing for the next level, today's session will equip you with strategies that will help you to think and act more strategically. Now, before I go on, can you hear me okay? Because I'm getting notification that my internet connection isn't fantastic. So please let me know whether you can see and hear me okay. I've been having a few internet connection problems today. I'm just going to switch over my internet connection and see whether that makes a difference. Give me 1 second. Okay, so what I'm going to be covering today, I'm going to be looking at what strategic thinking really means and moving beyond the jargon, because I find that not quite understanding what it means can often be the barrier to leaders being effective at strategic thinking. I'm going to be looking at the difference between operational and strategic focus, some common barriers that keep leaders stuck in the weeds rather than having a strategic outlook. And I'm going to be sharing some practical steps that will help you to build your strategic thinking muscles. And at the end, I will share how you can contact me if you want me to coach or speak on leadership development for yourself or for your organization. I will share how you can contact me. And I will also be offering 5 complimentary 1-hour coaching sessions for those of you that attend live today. And in order to benefit from that, just comment, "I'm attending live," and email admin@solutions.com before the 1st of October. And we will be in touch to let you know how you can arrange your complimentary session. And it's offered on a, that is a complimentary session is offered on a first come basis. So before we begin, what's one area where you'd like to think more strategically? And please share in the comments one area where you would like to think more strategically. And whilst I'm waiting for that to come through, I will move on. So what does strategic thinking really mean? And like I said, this is something that I often find leaders struggle with strategic thinking because they don't have a clear understanding of what it is, or they have a misunderstanding of what it actually means. And so what does it mean to you when you think about strategic thinking, or you think to yourself, I want to be able to think more strategically? What does that mean to you? So if you break down what strategic thinking means to a simple term, it's about anticipating the bigger picture, seeing the bigger picture, and aligning decisions with long-term goals that are aligned with that bigger picture. And it's different from planning, because strategy is all about the where, whereas planning is about how. So when you're developing a strategy, you're looking at where we go, why are we going in this direction, whereas planning is all about the how. How are we going to achieve this? How are we going to do this? And so getting clear what that is can make a big difference for some people. And I'll give you an example. A coaching client who was holding herself back from going for a director position. She was the head of a department, but she wanted to go for promotion, but she was holding herself back. One of the reasons she gave was that she's not strategic enough in her thinking. And so when I asked her, well, what exactly does strategic thinking mean? And she thought about it and she said, well, I'm not really sure, to be honest. Sometimes we hear terms, we hear words, and because we're not quite clear about what these terms actually mean, we don't think that we're able or capable of doing what is required. And so just by getting an understanding and breaking down what that meaning is of that term, you can see that, yes, I can do this. So with this particular client, like I said, she said that she didn't think that she could think strategically or make strategic decisions. And she was comparing herself to a colleague of hers. And she said, you know, he's always speaking. She was introverted, her colleague was extroverted. He's always speaking and blah, 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 blah. And so I asked her to reflect on, well, what is he actually saying? And when she reflected on it, she said, well, he's not actually being strategic. He's just, you know, regurgitating a lot of information. And so then I challenged her to think about some of the ideas that she'd put forward, or some of the innovative and creative things that she'd implemented. And when she reflected on it, she could see that she was actually quite strategic in her thinking, because she'd put forward ideas looking at the organization and how they could go about addressing these. And so she began to realize that, well, yes, she was actually a strategic thinker, and it was herself that was getting in the way of thinking that she was a strategic thinker. And when it comes to making that shift from operational to strategic focus, Operational is more about solving problems that are happening in the day to day. So things your teams may be going through, difficulties and challenges that your team are facing, looking at the operational, what's happening with the operational, and so on. Whereas strategic is about anticipating what's going to happen in the future. So anticipating tomorrow's opportunities and risks that your organization may face, your team may face. And no matter where you are in your leadership journey, you can be looking at the bigger picture. Even if you're a first manager, strategic thinking would be looking at how what your team does fits into the wider department, and then how that fits into the wider organization, and looking at and anticipating opportunities and risks that may affect your team. If you're at a more senior level, then it's looking externally as well to see how opportunities may arise, what opportunities may arise, or any risks that your organization may face. So no matter what level you are in your leadership journey, you can look at things strategically, develop a strategic outlook on where you fit, where your area of responsibility fits into the bigger picture. Like a practical example, operational, so thinking, maybe looking at how you improve your team's processes. If things aren't working, what can be done to make them better? Whereas a strategic outlook would be looking at how you position your team to support your organization's objectives or your vision. Now, some of the common barriers that I see that keep leaders stuck when it comes to strategic thinking is always firefighting. So being reactive rather than proactive. So, and it sometimes can be challenging to shift from being reactive to proactive. But it's all about giving yourself that space and taking a step back. When you're caught up in the day-to-day challenges and the busyness of work, it can be hard to take that step back to look at things from a bigger picture perspective. So you're just fighting fire, you're dealing with issues and challenges as they arise. And you need to be able to take that step back. And something that I always encourage my coaching clients to do is to make time to be still, to have time where they can have thinking time, where they've not got any interruptions, they can step back, they can reflect, and they can think. And giving yourself that space and protecting it like you would any other meeting. So scheduling time in your calendar, whether it's on a weekly basis or however frequent works for you, just to allow yourself space, just to pause, to think, to reflect, and look at the bigger picture. So rather than just getting yourself so caught up in the weeds, so to speak, and just reacting to situations as and when they happen, taking that step off this treadmill and giving yourself that space so that you are proactive rather than reactive. Another barrier that I see that keeps leaders stuck from tapping into their strategic thinking skills is a lack of confidence when it comes to challenging the status quo. So things may have been done a particular way because they've always been that way, or there may be a lack of innovation and creativity or pursuing opportunities because there's groupthink, or people are just wanting to do things how they've always been done. And being able to challenge the status quo can help you to become more strategic, because you're not just going along with things just for the sake of that's always been done that way. So having that confidence to challenge the status quo. And by challenging the status quo, it's about doing it in a way that isn't confrontational, it's not judgmental, but it's about helping people to see your perspective and why your perspective and doing things differently will benefit the organization. And that's where influencing skills come into practice. And I have done previous LinkedIn lives on how to develop your influencing skills. And if that's an area that you need to develop, then do look back on that one. Another barrier that I see keeps leaders stuck from developing their strategic thinking is the belief that busy means you're being impactful. And sometimes I think some of us have bought into the concept that we always have to be busy if we're going to be making an impact. But sometimes just being busy is not actually productive. Busy does not equate to impactfulness. You've got to be looking at what is this busyness or being busy actually producing. Is it moving you further to the bigger vision, to the wider outlook? And if then reevaluating what your focus is and where your focus should be. And the other barrier that I see is that not understanding what strategic thinking actually means. And the example I gave you of my client, that was keeping her stuck. She was excelling in her role as a head of a department, but because she didn't think that she had that strategic thinking skill, she was holding herself back from going for promotion to a director level position. But once she had the clarity of what it actually means to think strategically and recognize, well, that is what she's doing anyway, and comparing herself to her extroverted colleague who talked a lot, but when she broke it down, he wasn't actually being strategic, wasn't coming up with new ideas or innovative ways of doing things. But she was just looking at that colleague and comparing herself to him and putting herself down in the process. So developing that understanding, like I said, can help you to recognize when you are actually thinking strategically. And so looking at some practical steps that you can use to build your strategic thinking skills. So as I mentioned, scheduling that thinking time in your week. Don't get so caught up in the busyness of the day-to-day pressures that you don't take time just to take that step back and give yourself some quality thinking time. Schedule it into your calendar. Protect it like you would any other meeting. I find that when clients do this, it not only helps them to think more strategically, it helps them to manage things better, and it for their overall well-being, it means that things are less stressful. But oftentimes when people do this, when busyness creeps up or things get a bit hectic, that can be the first thing to go. That protected space, thinking space, is often the first thing to go, because people don't quite equate that downtime. Well, it's not actually downtime, that not being busy, with being effective. So even though you're having that time to think, it is an investment in your capacity. It's not you doing nothing. So if you can get into the habit of recognizing the importance of having that thinking time, it is better for you overall. So schedule your thinking time each week. And there are certain frameworks that you can use that can help you with developing your strategic thinking. So the first one is a SWOT analysis. If you've not heard of what a SWOT analysis is, it's SWOT, SWOT, stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And it's about looking at where you are under each of those headings. So strengths and weaknesses are more to do with the internal. So the internal aspects of your organization, the internal aspects of your department or your team. Opportunities and threats are more about the external. So what are the strengths of your organization? Depending on what level you're at, look at your area of responsibility. What are the strengths? What are the areas of weaknesses? What do you need to do to build on those strengths and utilize those strengths? What can you do to manage those weaknesses or develop those weaknesses? Who has strengths in the areas where there is that weakness, and how can you utilize that to develop those? When it comes to opportunities and threats, look for the opportunities that are outside your immediate area of responsibility. What opportunities are there for growth? What opportunities are there for you to shape the things of the future? What are the threats that are threatening your department, your organization? With PESTLE, and that is an acronym, and the letters are PESTLE. P is for political, E is for economical, S is for social, T is for technological, L is for legal, and E is for environment. And when you're doing using the PESTLE framework, it's looking at how each of those letters or those topics, what is happening in the political environment that it could be likely to affect your organization. Now, if you're in the UK or if you're in the US, there are a lot of, well, anywhere you are in the world at the moment, there are a lot of things that are happening politically that are having an impact in the way that we work, in the way that organizations work, or even which will filter down to, if you're not at a senior level of leadership, that will filter down to the more junior levels of leadership. Economical, what are the economical pressures or the external economical pressures that are facing your organization or even your department? And what can you do about this? Social, what is happening socially in the wider environment or the external environment that could impact you? Technology is constantly advancing, and the increase in use of AI and how that's impacting us. If you want to stay ahead of the curve, look at how you can utilize technology. What impact is technology going to have on your organization? What shifts do you need to be making? What ideas can you think of that will help to improve the way that you do, save costs, increase performance? L is about legal. What changes in legislation will affect your organization or department? Environmental is about what's happening in the wider environment. How sustainable are the things that your organization do? What impact is it having on the environment? How is what's happening environmentally impacting your organization? And the thing is about getting curious as to what is happening when it comes to PESTLE, how that is going to impact your organization or impact your department or impact your team. What can you put in place to address those challenges or opportunities that are going to come about as a result of those changes? Getting curious and getting creative in your thinking can help you to identify innovative solutions. That helps you to be more strategic. And that's where building in that thinking time is so important, because then you can reflect on these things. The other thing is framework is scenario planning, and it's looking at different scenarios, anticipating what could happen and getting curious about how these can be addressed, and putting forward your ideas and being creative in how you think about addressing these scenarios as well, and planning what can be done to get the best outcome. And getting diverse perspectives. So if you're always listening to the same group of people and you're all thinking the same, you run the danger of groupthink, and that stifles creativity, innovation, and strategic outlooks. So get diverse perspectives. Speak to people that have different perspectives to yourself, people that you agree with or that you disagree with as well, just so that you can get to understand different perspectives, and it helps you to avoid being closed in your thinking. It helps you to be more broader in your thinking, and so you see things that you may not ordinarily have seen. And when it comes to putting forward your strategic thinking and ideas, practice communicating them and articulating your ideas at senior level conversations. So in board meetings, in senior executive meetings, putting forward your ideas. If you're at a more junior level of leadership, it's about putting forward your ideas to those who are more senior than you, and get into the habit of practicing articulating your ideas and putting them across in a way so that you're selling the benefit of what it is that you are thinking. So that about wraps it up for me. I've looked at what strategic thinking really means. I've sort of shared operational versus a strategic focus and what that looks like. I've shared some barriers that keep leaders stuck. And I've shared some practical steps that can build your strategic thinking skills. So my question to you is, where could you shift from operational to strategic right now? And please share in the comments, where could you shift from operational to strategic right now? And if you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat. If you watch this on replay and you have any questions, do share them in the chat, because I do come and watch. Read the comments. And if you want to, if you're on here live and you want to benefit from the complimentary coaching call, just type in the comments, I am attending live, email admin@aboundingsolutions.com, and someone will be in touch with you to arrange the coaching session. And this is offered on a first come basis, and it will be it needs to be done by the end of the month, 30th of September, so email before the 1st of October. And if you're interested in deepening your confidence and impact as a strategic leader, or you want me to come into your organization either to coach or to deliver workshops, then email admin@aboundingsolutions.com as well, and I will put that in the comment. So the email address has gone in the comments. So any questions before I sign off? Any questions? And do share with me either in the comments, or if there's anything that is come up in this live for you that you maybe don't want to share in the comments, then do send me a direct message. If you're interested in the complimentary coaching session, and you want to send me a direct message rather than putting it in the chat, then do that as well. Send me a DM if it's something that you're interested in. So if there are no questions, I'll just hang on for a few seconds to see if there are any questions. And I hope the person that commented about wanting to improve their strategic thinking at working in their personal life has found ways, or it's helped you think about how you can do this. Right, very useful question here. Which soft skills are required at strategic actions? So things such as influence, being able to influence, decision making, that is another one. Decision making, influencing, having that belief in yourself is important. A belief in yourself and your abilities. Emotional intelligence, so that you can be aware of how people are thinking, how things are impacting people. So those are some of the skills that are required. So you're welcome. Your presentation has been insightful. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and time. You are welcome. So like I said, either comment in the comments that you're watching live so that you can take advantage of the 5 complimentary coaching sessions that I'm offering, or send me a DM if you don't in the comments. And if you do have any comments that you or questions that you want to ask that you don't necessarily want to share in the comments, then do send me a direct message. So until the next time, I will see you next month. Bye.